Mic is on. There we go. Okay. Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to the channel, the stream, whatever avenue it is that you're watching this on. My name's Rin, as you might have deduced from the info on the screen over here. We are currently working on the tail end of A Daughter of the Forest, specifically chapters 14 to 16, and just a little housekeeping. If I'm sounding a little more lispy than usual or what have you, like I can hear it, but I don't know how much of that is just my own perception of my voice and how much is like actually audible. I've got a canker sore like right on the end of my tongue right there, so it's kind of messing with my speech patterns, which is fun. Yeah. So once again, I've got a knit project over yonder here as a fiddle fidget thing. Let's move that down. And yeah, so I don't believe there's any triggering content really in this section. So unless someone makes note of it, the trigger warning thing is going to not come into play, which is cool. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. Just a little thing before we get into stuff. I've been working on Orion and his outfit and everything, and he still needs like his hair and his ears, and his tail, and all that. But look at him, he's so cute, and he's got his little sweater and his pants, and they've got pockets, and his little boots and stuff, and they're lace up boots, and yeah, this is, unless I do it differently, this is currently the back of the lab coat. So we'll see how well that works. I honestly don't know at this point. But yeah. That's that. Yeah. So. Where was I? Right. So, chapter 13. Let's move this now. Also, I've had this for, I don't know, since start of June, late May, something like that. But this is the first time that I'm actually wearing it. It's a little shirt, and it's got little plants on it, and moon phases, and it says plaid parent, proud plant parent on the bottom there. Yeah. Fun times. Alright. So here we go. Let's readjust. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So, first off, just as a scene setting thing, we left off in chapter 13 with Red or Q, whichever name you want to call. But where Red rescues Sorcha from certain doom, and yeah, there we go. Yeah. Ow. Okay. So we left off in 13 with Red rescuing Sorcha from certain doom, and the populace of Harrowfield now knows that Simon is alive because he showed up with his brother. And last we knew from that chapter, the shirts had been distributed to the swans, except for one. So at the end of 13, we know that 5 of the 6 swans have their respective attire, but that Finbar didn't. The wind came through and snatched the shirt away, and Finbar was the last one because he was the slowest flying, so therefore he wasn't going to be able to get a shirt, and being that they all had to acquire their shirts at the same time, in order for the spell to be broken, Sorcha was going on the assumption that the spell would not be broken, just point blank at that point. So that's where we left off in 13. 14 starts with okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 14 starts with Red, like, it starts where 13 left off. So Red is still like hanging on to Sorcha to make sure that she's alright, and the fire's going, but no one is in danger of going up with it. It's just, making interesting colors because of the chemically treated ash that was used there. Now, at that point, the audience that gathered, so both Harrowfield and I can never remember the name, but Richard's people. But both of those groups of people are present, and Richards are decidedly more bloodthirsty, as you might imagine. And the folks from Harrowfield are trying to figure out the whole what's going down, because witchcraft and all that. Which a big bad. And in addition to all of that, like at this point, everyone's stunned because Ray just jumped in the fire, but also, they've just seen a bunch of swans turn into young men, and are trying to make sense of whatever kind of shenanigans are happening now. And for the rest of the book, things go pretty fast. Or at least for the rest, well, more or less. Sort of, yeah. Things pick up, but yeah. So, 14 goes pretty fast. Simply because it's essentially all happening in the span of just a few days, right? So we've got the rescue and a departure back to Ireland, and returning to Sevenwaters on the span of a week and a half. So um as you might imagine, a bunch of unknown quote unquote enemy people showing up in an estate following some kind of a weird bunch of shenanigans happening, is met with a healthy dose of skepticism of intentions, I suppose. Yeah. And with everything, there's like what do my notes say, actually? Hey, Honeycomb. How you doing? How are you doing today? I just kind of finished a recap of the last couple scenes of 13. So, that's where we're at right now. Yeah. So, yeah. How are y'all? Glad it's book club time. Gotcha. I am with you there. Um, let me just one sec. So, yeah. Anyway, so we've got Red, trying to protect Serica, and we've got Serica's brothers trying to protect Serica, and there's a language barrier, and like everyone's running on like full high octane. So on top of like strange foreign dudes just showing up, um, okay, one sec. I messed it up, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, one sec. I'm trying to do a thing and it didn't quite work. Alright, un momento. Okay, started learning two-color brioche. Knitting in right now and trying to have faith it will turn out adult size because right now it looks so small. Oh jeez. But on to the book. Okay. Alright. Yeah. So Uh, okay, there we go. Yeah. So we've got. Where were we? Um. So, like, at the time that all this is going down, right? We've got Red, who's bleeding massively from a shoulder wound because he just ripped what's probably a crossbow bolt out of his shoulder. It's just described as an arrow, but depending, like, it would depend on what kind of windows are present in the estate, honestly. But for most, well, you could have a regular longbow. It would just be not, like, it would be more unwieldy than a crossbow, essentially. Um, so there we go. Yeah, it would be more unwieldy than a crossbow in that sort of situation. But again, crossbow bolts tend to be considerably thicker just because they have, like, the shock power behind them, so they need to be a little bit more sturdy, I guess. But I don't know. Northwoods, that's his name. Yeah. Okay. But we don't have evidence crossbows are a thing. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing. And really, the archers of the time would have been adept at longbow, so yeah, it's reasonable to assume that that's not the situation that they're dealing with. But still, yeah. So we've got the archer dude who shot Hugh. So Hugh gets carted off to medical. And the entire rest of the populace is just kind of like standing there trying to figure out what's going down and how to best proceed with dealing with these strange foreigners that happens to just like appear in their midst. On top of which, most of them were already kind of suspicious of Sorcha to begin with. So there's that. And the squad that shot Alice used longbow, so we assume that was what the archer used. Yeah, okay. Fair. Yeah. Yeah, because it's the same blue fletching and everything, so that is a reasonable assumption. Yes. So. On a positive, because Simon's back, Alice is a happy doggo, and that's always good to see. But Simon's claiming essentially that he doesn't know what went down. He doesn't have any he doesn't have any memory. That's a word. He doesn't have any memory of his life, essentially. Which we find out later is kind of more Tim masking stuff because he just doesn't want to deal with people bugging him about it. So there's that. The brothers both have grounds to be concerned and are way overprotective. No scars either. Yeah. So, okay. For that, which that could make sense, depending. But it is interesting that the lack of scarring is noted in that, because there's a lot of stories that is a thing in play, and the characters just don't talk about it. Like it's not a thing in the storyline. But for this, it's like, no, this this is a plot point. What happened? Because there's like no way, based on how you left the place when I was there, that you're showing up here and don't look like you were tortured at some point. So what? But it is interesting that Simon's essentially traded the physical markers of like trauma and stuff, and like the PTSD that goes with it and all that, for kind of a compelled altered state, I suppose. Like, because when Sorcha's talking to him, he ended up sharing something about being taken by the Fae for an unknown amount of time, and based on fairy lore and everything else. And as mentioned in the chapter, time moves differently in the physical world than it does in the underworld, or the realm under the hills. And it is interesting though. It's like Simon and Elaine had a thing, and then Simon disappeared. And like I realize at least part of it is like latching on to someone who was kind and tried to assist and stuff. But the idea that the only thing that kept Simon like himself in the extended period of time that he was with the Fae was having a lock of Sorcha's hair just hanging out, and then he's all sad when he comes back and she married his brother. It's like, A, dude, everybody thought you died, and B, like I get the sentiment and stuff, and from the sounds of it, he would have been from the sounds of it, like he would have been kept with the Fae for like at least a couple of decades, probably. If not longer. Because it depends on what lore you're looking at and what region you're talking about as to the time, the space-time equivalent. But the most common that I've seen is like one day in the fairy realm is 100 years in the mortal realm. Excuse me. Or the opposite. Of course, with that, usually, if you come back to the mortal realm from the Fey realm, then you start rapidly aging until you're physically the age that you would have been, like, in the intervening period. So if you were gone for the equivalent of, like, 150 years, you would, like, exit space and then rapidly age 150 years. So, there's that. Yeah. I don't know. The rapid aging isn't a constant, though. Yeah, no, that's total. That's totally accurate, though. It's like it's one of those that the stories are inconsistent, and you know that going in, but it's one of those. It's like I realize that this isn't a parameter that is accessible. But being that I'm analyzing this for shreds of authenticity and all that, I would like to have there be consistency in the data, but that's not really a thing because that's not how it works. Yeah. Oh man. Anyway. Um so we've got Hugh rescuing Sorcha from stuff. Sorcha being able to talk now, but like it's hard because of like 3 years of enforced silence through literally everything. So like the description that she gives of trying to force the words out sounds like it's pretty well in line with selective mutism, or like either from like lack of use or as a trauma response or both at this point. Ring wants consistent data. Folklore gives middle finger, right? It's like, uh, like I realize that folklore is basically fan fiction of other folklore. Like I've accepted this, and like in my compendium analysis of fan fiction, it's just like I can accept that each iteration is like its own alternate universe situation. Like, all right, but still, you know, just just something. Uh, honestly, oh man. So there's that. Yeah. Um. But yeah, it like I especially because like well, Connor had a little bit more leeway but the other 5 brothers have been in almost a constant animal brain for the last 3 years. And trying to immediately transition that into, like, human customs and thought patterns. Like, I can totally get why they were reacting as they were, because it's very much the scared, cornered, animal response. And swans are very protective and sort of rather vicious, depending on who you are and what end of the equation you're on. So, like, not surprised. Not a bit. But it is still, like, interesting to see as a thing. Okay, one sec. Yeah. So, so, like, on top of that, like, animal response they're dealing with, right? We've got Paladric, who is having a sad that he can't fly. And wants to build a machine so that he can fly and do an explore. Which, like, of the lot of them, alright, fair, whatever. Yeah, it's kind of his MO at this point. And Connor's been, like, living in an altered state of consciousness for the last 3 years. So, like, from the sounds of it, he's real ready to just, go do human druid things at this point. And then we've got Finbar, who, as the slowest of the flyers, was the last one there, and ends up metaphorically and literally stuck between the 2 worlds. Because his shirt only had the one sleeve, so he's still got a wing. But, like, metaphorically, there's a pond somewhere that's got his swan mate and his 2 gosling kids. No. What are Signet, maybe? What are swan babies called? Come on. Yeah, cygnets. So, like, he's dealing with that whole situation, and the idea that he had to say goodbye to his family to go rejoin his family. And swans mate for life. So there's that element in there. As previously discussed, at least, when there's kids, which there are. So, like, and it is interesting that, like, I forget which chapter this, but in 15 or 16, it's Finbar who is able to kind of get their dad, like, out of his own head, like, and kind of bring him back to some semblance of maybe not normality, but gonna bring him back to himself. And like, especially when, for the entire duration, it's like they don't quite get on the best, you know? Yeah. Easier to help yourself than someone else. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, it's like, I can totally, see the issue that you're dealing with. Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. And oh yeah, so at this point, the dress is now stained with water from the sea, uh, fire and ash and stuff from the fire, and Hugh's blood. So depending on how you do it, that could either be water because water is a base in blood, or it's blood from a person important to the wearer, so therefore it's like an extra power thing. Interesting that the herbs growing out of the bench Father sits on happen to be calming herbs. Yeah, no, seriously. It's really interesting that of, like, the entire garden was annihilated, right? But the ones growing out of the spaces by the bench happen to be calming, and And they're just hanging out, they're vibing, they're there. Yeah. And then the last scene in 13, 14, yeah, is Red giving Sorcha the apple that he said he was gonna bring back for her, and her kind of signing a love confession sort of situation. Which, like, just as a thing, right? The number of times that one of the characters, whether it's one of the Fae or one of the brothers, is like, I mean, this has kind of been destined for a while. It almost didn't happen because, both of you are just like more selfless than any any of the Fae had thought possible because they don't think in that sort of way and stuff. So, yeah, because y'all both gave up the one thing that you wanted so that the other person could be happy, and neither of you were happy because you just were like, no, no, it's fine, you can go. No, it's fine. Like, I'll just leave. And it's like, guys. uh, fun time. Okay. So, where do so 15 starts with um everyone landing in Erin. They've landed in Ireland, and the part cute, if you will. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, they've landed in Ireland, and don't want to be tracked, don't want to be seen in anything. Uh, just in case they're being watched, which, knowing Una, they probably are, you know. And excuse me. And apple. There we go. It takes what, 3 days? Nah, she feels the curse breaking skedaddles. Well, yeah, but they don't know that. like, A, they don't know that, and B, like, it's been a minute. So it's just like, okay, we don't know what kind of situation we're walking into, so let's just be like, we're going stealth mode, and hopefully we don't die, because it would suck if we got, through this curse thing, made it all the way back home, and then died stupidly. Like, that would just be sad. Like, It just would. So they're being real cautious until they get back into Sevenwaters territory because, that's kind of their space, if you will, you know. Um, and come come to find that there's a whole like clear cut situation that happened in the forest. No one has firewood. People are dying because like there's no healers around, and food's scarce. The crops were funky. The livestock isn't being properly taken care of. So like whole situation with that. And meanwhile, like their dad is very much not all there after, a bunch of things. Which I have to wonder how much of that is like a residual from whatever spell Una put him under, and how much is just like the shock and stuff. What was all that way clear cut for as part of it? We don't get it, just no reason. From the descriptions and stuff, there's no particular reason. All I can figure for that is that it might have been some kind of like we need to cut wood for winter, but that's the extent that the thought had. Which fair, but being that the order would have come from the the head of the area, and the people had been subjected to like Una for the last couple years and couldn't really refute anything, and there was no one else around. They might have just had to go along with it, even if it sounded like it was BS. So, I don't know on that one, to be honest. Yeah. So, it's an interesting situation. I'll give it that. Um, okay. So, it's something we would have liked some surface reason behind, and senseless and wanton destruction. Yeah. It all I can figure past that is that the land is heavily tied to the spirits there. And, like, if Una was in control of that particular demand, to maybe use it as a something to get back at the Lady of the Forest or something. But that's all I can figure at that point. Because from the sounds of it, it wasn't like an old scar in the earth, but it wasn't like new. So yeah, you also wonder if Una can't help but spread malaise and suffering, like it's a side effect of her magic, or if it's all deliberate, or both. Yeah, honestly, it's probably both at that point, because from the sounds of it, her magic itself is sick. Because, like, the Lady of the Forest and her elk, like, the magic itself isn't good or bad, it's just its intent and how it's interacted with. But for Una, it seems like the magic itself is twisted, so regardless of what she's trying to do, something negative will come out of it. That being said, negative is an entirely subjective concept, so if we're getting a bit existential with it, like, negative to one is positive to another one. And Una seems to be happiest if everyone else is suffering, so there's that. The idea that like Una and Richard are just like on the same wavelength is kind of terrifying, honestly. Understandable, being that they're both like real bad, but oi, kind of gets us existential with it. He does. He really does. So, yeah. Come on. Um, it was really cool to see how the forest spirits were reacting to Sorcha like being back though. That was cool. It's like they're just hanging out and stuff and trying to keep the trees happy and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it's like, our little sister's back, yay! Alright. You guys are cool. Una and Richard seem to represent the pursuit of power over the rest, over and over, and wait, what? Okay. Una and Richard seem to represent the pursuit of power over, and the rest to represent power through community. Yeah, okay. Definitely. Like, the strength definitely has a different origin depending on which characters you're following. And like, I can't remember what the kid's name is, but like, it's, uh, I just really kind of feel sorry for their little brother, who, at this point at least, is growing up with Una and all of her craziness. Well, power mad tendencies. We'll go with that. Karen, yeah. Karen? Yeah. Ow. Yeah. Um, so, at that point in the story, we know that they have a little brother who Una took with her when she fled. Um, and yeah, he's not destined for a happy childhood. Yeah, it like oof. That's a sad, honestly, right there. Kid is not gonna have a happy time of it, honestly. Um, and from what I remember, there's a whole like subplot with that too. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. But there we go. So we've got. You've got the siblings who are now home trying to figure out what has gone wrong, what needs to happen in order for the estate to be functional again. And come on, where'd it go? Um, yeah. There we go. Also, I'm talking, I'm doing an experiment with this, so it's kind of mostly working. We'll see what happens. I don't know. But um, So, so all the kids are trying to figure out how to get the estate back to its, former glory, as it were, right? And in doing that, we've got like Sorcha going back into a role as healer, and Connor kind of taking on some of the administrative roles again, and Liam stepping into the kind of head of state, head of house, I suppose, position, because their dad is currently indisposed, and the experiment wasn't working. Yeah, exactly. And in all of that, it becomes apparent that while they're all back, there's definitely some things that remain fairly janky, I suppose. Compared to how things used to be, Which you expected. A lot of them have just been through like a multiple years long traumatic experience, but there's that. And some were able to deal with it a lot better than others, as you might expect. But they all have much to deal with and different coping mechanisms. Yeah. So like, it's understandable because, say, like, Liam was the oldest, so his job was, to take care of all of his siblings and stuff. And he was trained to take on the position as head of house when that became a thing. So coming back and having everything be in like full disarray and all that. That's where he ends up, you know? And on top of that, we've got the situation with Sevenwaters and I forget what Redbeard's community name was, but we've got Eamon of the Marshes completely like disregarding everything and like open hostility to everybody else and working with Richard and Una. But they're trying to kind of be all sneaky about it to get him out because he's married to Ailish and Liam is determined to not have Ailish's kid grow up in a situation that is like anti-Sevenwaters. I like that Cormac learned not to rush right in as a swan, and now he's looking after Diamond and helping him learn it. Yeah, that right there is definitely a positive there. Like, regardless of anything else, like that in and of itself that's definitely a positive. So okay, and where? Oh yeah. So in addition to like, because my brain works in connecting previously and analyzed stories and all that. So in addition to like, my brain's applying Sorcha as Ariel in The Little Mermaid and stuff. When like the scene where, or well, it's not a scene so much as like a series of scenes, but the description of like the estate slowly like coming back into itself, like slowly kind of waking up, starting to breathe for the first time in a while. Reminded me of some of the descriptions that I've read and seen and stuff of like the Arthurian court waking up after an enchanted sleep. Because in some of the versions, there's the idea that the entire court is just somewhere underground in a keep somewhere, sleeping until such a time as like the horn is blown or what have you. Circus, Ariel, and the Tempest. Not a fit. Yeah, not so much. Like, not so much with that one. uh, like, um, yeah, looks like. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna fiddle with that off camera. Because it's being annoying. Alright. Okay. Um, what's the experiment? So like I ended up knitting at least part of the lab coat for him, and I'm trying to join it at the top. And being that I didn't quite know how long it was gonna need to be for the pieces, I wanted to leave it so that I could add to it as needed. So both of the pieces are there hanging out, and I was gonna try and like knit them together or just like finish it across the top, but it's being annoying and not wanting to let me do that. So I might just have to finish both of them separately and sew it together and whatever, but it is what it is. So How rude. Exactly. Exactly. It is very rude. However, I did do this cool thing where I was trying to figure out how to do like a lapel, and so there's a little bit right here up top in the front, and I just did like I reversed it for that section so I can sew it down, and it's this little lapel section there, and then like add some more up here. So yeah. Partial success. It's like half credit right now. Yeah, 3D action. It's fun. Yeah. Okay. So with everybody else trying to like cope with their own stuff and all that, we've got Finbar, who for the most part doesn't really interact with anyone. Mostly because he seems to still be like half in Swan Brain. And is mourning his Swan family. And seems to be kind of the touchstone to keep his dad like not catatonic. But also, the few times that it's described with Finbar actually walking around with the townspeople, they do this weird thing where they kind of treat him like a living talisman sort of situation, which I understand as a concept of like you've crossed the borders and are now a physical representation of like the bridge between worlds, like between human and fae, between the human world and the other world, because dude's got a wing and all that. But also, he's like, wait, 18, 19 at this point? Dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Just got back home. Like, guys. Appreciate the enthusiasm, but like, let the dude adjust again. Come on now. Like, hey. Short interlude while I try and find a needle that decided to run off somewhere. Well, I don't know where it went, but it's over here somewhere, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So, there's that. And fun plant fact of the day. balsam and peppermint for a bad cough. Um, and so it's right around this time where, like, they're trying to get some semblance of back on track, and Dermont just has to go after Una. Like, between everything that's happened and still feeling like he's responsible for some of the things that initially went down, he's gonna go. So Cormac goes with him to kind of try and rein him in a little bit, to kind of help him recalibrate a little. Hope the needle doesn't surprise attack you later. Me too. When I get up, we'll use the magnet wand and we'll see where it went. And, like, I understand being concerned for your sister's safety. Right? Doesn't Red come before the brothers split up? No. Cormac and Dermont head off. And then in 16, we've got Sorcha's 16th birthday, and Red shows up. Which, like, that's the whole packed scene in and of itself right there. But, like, I get being concerned over, like, concerned about your sister and all that. But, like, talking about her like she's not there when she's sitting, like, right next to y'all. Read a lot of books this week, so I couldn't remember. Yeah, no, it's you're good. So we've got Sorcha helping the locals, and by that point, there's been enough intervening time between the end point where she was working with the Starwart and present day that her hands have been able to heal, and the swelling has gone down enough that she can wear the wedding ring that Hugh carved. So it's a birthday, and they're not doing, like, the bonfires and the feasts and everything because they just don't have the supplies and no one has the energy to deal with that. But they have, like, a nice meal in the kitchens and stuff, and she's wearing the blue dress, and has decided to put the wedding ring on. Nice little magic to heal her hands. Yeah. Like, from the sounds of it and how scarred they were, like, there has to have been some magic involved in order for, like, there to be that much of a difference. Because whenever I've read the passages of her in mid-weaving, it always kind of brings to mind, someone with, like, pretty pronounced, like, rheumatoid arthritis, with, like, the inflamed joints and everything. At which point, unless all you're dealing with is an allergic reaction, you need some, like, magic stuff to reverse that. You know? Like, seriously. Uh, um, and, okay. So, there. So, Hugh gets to Sevenwaters and arrives, like, in the middle of the midwinter celebrations. Like, which, from what I remember the text saying, it was like, that's the same point that Simon was dragged in. But, like, they bring in Hugh, and everyone's so confused, because they're just like, I don't know how he got here, but, like, so we didn't know that he was in the area until he just, like, showed up on the road and was like, hey, yeah, you can take me in, that's fine. Like, oh no, don't tie my hands. Oh no. Ah. Which, like, oh, the guards were so confused. Um, which, as a thing, right? He managed to get into an unknown area that's heavily guarded. So either he's just that adept of a woodsman, or the Lady of the Forest was like, ah yes, you have arrived. No, carry on, it's fine. We can work on your stealth abilities later. Yeah, no, just carry on. It's fine. Which, based on everything else and how manipulative the Fae have been, and the nature beings have been at this point, I'm kind of leaning more towards that way. It's in the character's favor at this point, but it's still manipulation of, like, events. So there's that. I do appreciate that, like, instead of just objectively jumping to, like, kill him now. What's the dad's name? Collum. That like, Collum just like, okay, well, we're here. You want to tell a story? You gonna, yeah, tell a story. There you go. Explain yourself. Entertain us. Get up a chair. Which, like, at that point, I realized that, like, he'd been informed that this was the dude that your kid's married to, so, like, that might have tamped down the, like, stabby. But still. We also vote for Fey intervention. Yeah, there's times that, like, not mad at it. There's times that it's like, why are you like this? But there's times that it's like, okay, I'll take that. That's fine. Um so he's telling this epic narrative of a man who traveled across the sea to find his brother and who fell in love with the girl who he saved, and, like, just like the tone in the audience just progressively going from, like, oh yeah, this is a good story, this guy can really, like, he can do a story, yeah, to, like, wait a second, is this like, is this about, like, is this about the people that are, like, sitting up there, that are, like, head of our little space here? Is this about Sorcha? Is it? I don't, but, like, he's a really good storyteller, so yeah. That he was her husband could have possibly made stabby feelings worse, to be fair. Seemed to, and her brothers who thought she couldn't possibly have consented freely. Yeah, okay. That as a thing, right? I get the um the hesitation just because, like, there's a precedent of uh her inability to verbally communicate and having abuse done to her person. But also, ow. Uh, but also, like, she's been living on the estate with this dude for the last year. And, like, of the whole lot of them, he's the one that can understand what she's saying the most. So, like, and also I realized too that there are people who seem to think that if you're deaf or mute or something, that you don't have agency over your own personhood and whatnot, which is BS to the nth degree. But if there's no, like, full language barrier, right? Like, if one person fully understands what is being verbally communicated, and the other person understands what is being non-verbally communicated, as long as the speech and the gestures coincide entirely, so that the message is like received as it's sent and all that. Like it. Mm, guys, come on. Yeah. But like, if it was a coercive situation, she had lots of opportunity to repudiate him in safety, and she didn't. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it wasn't like, you know, because there's times that even if you're physically removed from the situation and you know that you're safe, you can't talk about whatever it is. Like, nah, it's like she's having a sad because they're leaving because the dude is not going with them. You know? Like, come on. Um, and just, okay. The part part of the story dialogue though, right? Like the things that he had wanted to say but couldn't because, reasons and stuff. Wait, what is it? You are the blood in my veins and the beating of my heart. You are the bone of my bone and breath of my breath. Like, I mean, there was other stuff in there, but like, it's pretty heavy there. Yeah, yeah. That's okay. All right. And and yeah, so we've got like he's untied. Like, damn, dude. Yeah, yeah. Like, all right. Fair play, sir. Fair play indeed. So we've got Hugh being untied and stuff, and like it it was really cool though, because it's like the entire time that they knew each other, she had the ring on a cord around her neck. So like the gesture of like putting her hand on the back of his neck while she was like untying him and stuff with the ring on her hand, just like yes. Very good. Very good indeed. Um, so, like, within, like, just a couple of days, um, he was kind of walking, yeah, very satisfying. Like, he was kind of doing a tour of the townsfolk with Serica, and they're warming up to him because he's just, like, pitched in and helping people do stuff whenever needs doing, because that's just what he does. And, um, the brothers and Donald, I think the man at arms wanted to kind of see what he could do slash beat him up, sort of. So the progression between it going from like a fierce competition of like, no, I'm better, no, like we're better, yeah, like no, I'm better, whoa, to just like teaching each other fighting moves is cool. It's like, all right, you're a decent fighter. Okay, we were skeptical, but like, all right, you're cool. But also, gonna kick your butt. But also, you're kind of cool, so whatever. Uh, and then we've got Finbar being all like reserved and whatnot, and like letting slip that it's gonna be Sarika and Hugh's kids who inherit Sevenwaters, and the rest of the brothers are gonna be off doing whatever. Which, for some of them, like for Connor, he's gonna be working with the druids and training, and Poldrick is probably gonna be doing an explore just because. um, but yeah. So at the end of the story, it's I don't remember seeing uh, I don't remember seeing a part where Poldrick leaves. Just that he was talking about it a lot. But by the end of the book, it sounds like it's just Sarika and Liam who are still there. Because we've got Connor heading out with the old men so he can become a fully initiated druid with a birch staff, and Finbar slipping out of the estate at night in the cold without like suitable outside clothes, and they follow him and find their mom's talisman with like the cord still intact and some starwort and a feather. It's kind of laid out on the shore of the lake, and like, okay, it takes some work, right? It takes some work to try and drown yourself, if that's the exit strategy, for lack of a better phrase, that you're going for. If for no other reason than like once you're not kicking anymore, remains float and stuff. And I realize that all of this is taking place in a special forest where like the Fae tend to come out and like just snatch people sometimes, but like, I don't know. Um, but the idea that like Sirika and presumably Hugh and Liam, maybe, I don't know, but just like a small handful of people are in the minority of like not thinking that Finbar just walked into the lake to become not alive when there's like no remains found. And yep. Interesting. Interesting jump there. Um and then the last scene, spoiler, Finbar didn't drown, right? It's like it's like, guys, you really think that the dude who's been through like all of this is just gonna get taken out by a lake? I don't know. I don't know, but that could happen. Totally, but like, no. So the final scene in the book is um, it's okay. Don't remember if this was all the same day or if it was like within a week, but it's on like the final part of the book is on the spring equinox, but there's a little bit of a run up to it. So Callum heads off to try and retrieve his kids. Because they haven't been back in a chunk of time. So we'll see what happens with that. And Sorcha's pregnant, with the expected delivery around the autumn equinox. And on the spring equinox, she and Red go up to what used to be Father Brian's house and cave. And there's like the sacred mistletoe growing in the trees, and they're just kind of sitting there, and Red's like, hey, yeah, so, do you want to talk about what went down here? So, no? Okay, that's cool. And then they ride back to the main estate, thinking about the future. So, we've got Red gave up his title to Simon and came to Ireland, intending to stay permanently regardless of what Sorcha said or did. Which is why it took like a chunk of time to mosey over. And according to Finbar, their kids are going to be the ones inheriting the estate. Finbar, Connor, Cormac, and Dermot have all left the forest at this point, and Lord Collum went after them to try and track them down. Finbar and Connor are doing their own thing, and Cormac and Dermot went after Una and the baby brother. Liam and Seamus Redbeard, so Eilish's dad, are planning some kind of military strategy takedown for Aemon, who was partially responsible for, like, the shenanigans that happened. And Sorcha is once again a healer for the community. And Simon does end up with Elaine, which is nice, but we hope she's not living with Sorcha's ghost. Yeah. Like, I remember that from, like, the next one. But, yeah, especially if Simon was hanging on to the idea of Sorcha for a long number of years, it'd probably take a good chunk of time to get past that. And yeah, it yeah. I don't know. Like, I remember there being some, like, weird stuff going down with that. But yeah, no, I'm glad that they have the possibility of happiness at this point. And Richard has been dealt with according to law. If I'm remembering correctly, he's been banished or something. With as problematic as he is, that's probably not gonna be good enough, just as a thing, to take him out of the equation, but we shall see. We shall see. So, that is it for Daughter of the Forest. Yeah. Richard needs to be dead. He does. He does. Just like, there's certain characters that, regardless of any other interactions with him or anything, they will consistently be the worst possible example of humanity. So, like, being that Richard is all of those, maybe just, like, someone push him off the cliff or something. Because at that point, it's just, like, there's a slippery patch of moss or something, and, like, oh. Because if someone ambushed them in the forest, then there's a whole, like, rivalry situation, and that's not good. You don't want that. Okay. So, that's where we're leaving off with the story this week. Anyone have thoughts or what have you? I'm starting some classes next week, if I remember right. If not, I'll let you know in the Discord and stuff. But I'm starting classes. It's either next week or the week after, and I don't quite know how I'm gonna work with the timings and course loads and stuff. So I'm gonna try and do a stream next Thursday. Or no. Yeah, next Thursday. And like at like 3. Just to see how it goes, because I have a class later that day. And if that works, then we can figure something for that. Otherwise, it might need to move to like Friday or the weekend or something like that. So we'll see. There's a block in the middle of the day on Tuesday, but being that streaming is entirely dependent on the Wi-Fi connection. Yeah. Going to switch this Thursday to 3 as well. Yeah, like, just so that I can kind of get in that headspace. We'll bring it forward a little bit and see how it works. Because depending on how fast we go through stuff, the book streams, like the other streams, like, it's variable, but for the book streams it can go from like an hour and a half to like 3, depending on what it is and how many tangents happen. So I don't know on that. Well, there you go. But yeah, so anyway. Oh yeah, you weren't here when I showed Orion's finery, right? So we've got his little sweater and his little pants. We need to fit the pockets. And he's got boots now that are shiny. It's got boots for his feet, and they've got laces and everything. Waiting to start Son of Shadows. Yeah. So we're gonna be starting on the second book in the Sevenwaters trilogy. So the next 2 books that we're doing are Son of Shadows and okay, you sit over there, bud. What's the third one? I can't remember. Child of the Prophecy. So yeah. Actually, let me see. 1 second. We can fly around. Yeah. Okay. So, there's that. Yeah. So that concludes my observations and what's its. But yeah, the next two that we've got are Son of Shadows and Child of the Prophecy by Juliet Marillier. And actually, I have Shadows on here. Let's see. Okay, so it's got right about the same. Yeah. Okay. It's got the same kind of time breakdown where it's like, at least with the audio, an hour to like an hour and a half. There's one that's an hour and 45 minutes. So, do we want to do 2 chapters at a time again? Or do we want to try and do 3? Oh. Because, at least to start, 2's probably gonna be a good one. 2 time at least to start. Don't want to overload with homework and all. Yeah, that is good plan. Is good plan, yes. Alright. So, there's that. Yeah. Before we head off and anyone have some final thoughts or nah? It was a good book, even though there were parts where we were like, why did we recommend this again? Yeah. Thanks for reading with us. You are entirely welcome. That was definitely a good one, yeah. Like, there's a few that I remember from the same era that I read this initially, that I know at the time I had a really hard time with certain scenes, but the book itself was really good. So, yeah. But all of those were part of a series, and I don't remember which book in the series had the particular scenes. So, as we're going through stuff, like, if I can remember what the titles are, I'll share them with y'all, in case you want to do that for stuff. And being that it's, like, historical fiction and all that, like, there's a lot of plant use for medicine and everything, because, just like with everything else, apparently I have a type. Like one of the series is this. Yeah, the Descendants of Merlin. That's one of them. I can't remember how many books are in that, but yeah, there's some questionable scenes in there. I'll say that much. But High School Ring was very into the majority of it, at least. So there's that. Rin's type. Fantasy, but make an outdoorsy. Right? Right. Fantasy with historical fiction bits with, like, the outside place. uh, yeah, one of the Descendants books follows Queen Elizabeth too. That's a fun random bit of info there. Like the first one. But yeah. Bonus for LGBTQ plus romance content. Exactly. Exactly. Like, I need it believable. So if it's like if it's historical fiction and there's queer rep that's done well, like, and there's like characters involved who are like, yeah, you're awesome, keep being your fab self. Like, all right, yeah, okay, yes, and plant things and yeah. Exactly. All right. So, uh, that said, I don't really know what the next couple of weeks are gonna look like as far as streaming. Will I get everything situated and all that? But I will keep you apprised of the situation. Um, and yeah. So, have a fabulous rest of your day. I should have like some definitive dates that I'm gonna start doing things in a couple of days and all that. But yeah, we shall see. Yeah. Have a good one, everybody. I will see you all later. Hugs. Hugs all around. Alright. Have a good one, friends. I will see you Thursday at 3. And yeah. Have a good one.